Good afternoon and welcome to the webinar, the LEED Project Series Part 6, documenting the credits in the Indoor Environmental Quality, Innovation, and Regional Priority categories. For those of you that are not familiar with 3R and our relationship with SRI, I'll give you a little background. In 1996, SRI began to incorporate environmental and CSR standards, including ISO 14001. By 2006, SRI started to incorporate its own internal CSR initiatives with the goal of improving the company and work environment for its employees. In 2008, SRI Green Building Certification was established to perform LEED project reviews for the U.S. Green Building Council and GBCI. After establishing a team with various backgrounds in the sustainability and built environment sectors and completing over 5,000 green building projects, 3R was spun off to provide consulting services in CSR and green buildings. I'm Carla Mitchell with 3R, and I've been a LEED accredited professional for 10 years. Throughout my career of more than 20 years, I've been part of design teams for multiple LEED certified buildings. For the past 8 years, I've been working as a LEED project reviewer and a consultant for SRI and 3R, overseeing a team of reviewers that have completed nearly 10,000 project phase reviews. This experience makes us uniquely qualified to have these discussions about LEED projects. So what are we going to discuss today? We're going to talk about documentation specific to the indoor environmental quality, innovation, and regional priority credits in the LEED V4 BD&C rating system. We'll talk about strategies for the innovation credits, including pilot credits and exemplary performance. We'll clarify the rating system requirements, talk about some common errors and troublesome documentation, and use of publicly provided USGBC guidance. So what is the intent of these three categories? The IEQ category rewards decisions made by the project team about indoor air quality and thermal, visual, and acoustic comfort. The innovation category encourages project teams to achieve exceptional or innovative performance in their projects. And regional priority provides an incentive for the achievement of credits that address the geographically specific environmental, social, equity, and public health priorities. So let's talk a little bit about the point of the IEQ category. The credits in this category focus on indoor air quality and thermal, visual, and acoustic comfort. This is an important category because it directly affects the occupants of the building. Higher quality indoor environments can have a large impact on businesses that occupy them by reducing absenteeism and increasing productivity. For building owners and developers, focusing on the indoor environment improves the building resale value. This category has been revamped from the version 3 by combining some of the credits that you saw in version 3, thus creating a more holistic approach to the IEQ design. There are some things that you should pay attention to as you begin to document your project. Reporting the total floor area for your project and providing detailed floor plans. The floor area is critical throughout your project and will affect this multiple credits in the category, as well as credits throughout other categories. By providing detailed floor plans, you'll help your reviewer, along with any other narratives that you provide, to understand why any spaces have been excluded or classified in a certain way. When it comes to space classification, it is important that you understand the way that the LEED rating system defines occupied and unoccupied space, as well as regularly occupied and non-regularly occupied. The V4 reference guide includes tables to assist you in classifying the spaces in your project. For those of you familiar with the LEED IEQ space matrix that we used in version 3, you'll recognize the information at the beginning of the IEQ section. In version 4, instead of having a separate guidance document, the information has now been incorporated into the reference guide. These items will affect the credits you attempt in the IEQ category, and if they're not coordinated, you will have issues when your project is in review. So the first prereq in this category is minimum indoor air quality performance. The intent of this prerequisite is to contribute to the comfort and well-being of building occupants by establishing minimum standards for indoor air quality. The requirements of the prerequisite depend on whether your project is mechanically or naturally ventilated. For mechanically ventilated buildings, you must comply with either ASHRAE 62.1 2010 or the CEN standards for international projects. Naturally ventilated projects must comply with the CIBSE guidelines as well as the requirements of Section 6.4 of ASHRAE 62.1. A new requirement for this prerequisite is monitoring. Under previous versions of LEED, monitoring has been a separate credit and was not required. However, version 4 now requires that all projects, both mechanically and naturally ventilated, provide a monitoring component. With a mechanical ventilation system, you must provide direct outdoor airflow monitoring. This is typically an airflow monitor located at the outdoor air intake of the system. For natural ventilation systems, and depending on the design, there are 3 monitoring options. The first one, incorporate a direct exhaust airflow measurement device. This device should be able to measure the exhaust airflow and generate an alarm when the airflow varies by 15% or more from set point. The second option is to provide alarmed openings. You must identify all openings used for natural ventilation, including windows, louvers, and trickle vents. Each opening must be provided with an alarm, but only the openings counted as an intake for the ventilation system must be included in this requirement. The third option is to provide carbon dioxide monitors. Each thermal zone must be provided with a CO2 sensor located within the breathing zone or 3 to 6 feet above the floor. The CO2 monitoring system must be configured to generate an alarm when concentrations vary by 10% from set point. Next, we're going to look at documenting a mechanically ventilated project. The form shown there on the left outlines the requirements of complying with ASHRAE 62.1 2010. The required upload for this option is the minimum indoor air quality performance calculator, which is shown on the right side of the screen. This calculator is available as a download from the resources section of the prerequisite on usgbc.org. The current version of the calculator can be used for both version 3 and version 4 projects and incorporates the calculators that every project would need: single zone, multiple zone, and 100% outdoor air ventilation systems. Using this calculator simplifies the documentation's part of this prerequisite. For version 4 projects, this calculator is a required upload, so put away your ventilation spreadsheets and the old versions of the 62MZ calculators. After you use this new calculator, you'll be happy you did. For naturally ventilated spaces, the form outlines the documentation you must provide. First is the SIBC documentation. This includes the flow chart shown here on the right to confirm that natural ventilation is an effective strategy for your project. You must also provide documentation demonstrating that the project complies with Section 6.4 of ASHRAE 62.1 2010. The natural ventilation procedure includes requirements that differ from previous versions of the standard because now naturally ventilated spaces must demonstrate compliance based on where the outdoor air openings are located within the space. All requirements of Section 6.4 must be met in order to demonstrate compliance. Up next is the prerequisite environmental tobacco smoke control. The intent of this is to prevent or minimize exposure of building occupants, indoor surfaces, and ventilation air distribution systems to environmental tobacco smoke. Projects must prohibit smoking in the building, as well as prohibit smoking within 25 feet of all entrances and outdoor air intakes. One change from version 3 to note is that smoking is no longer permitted within a building, even with the use of smoking rooms. A requirement that has been clarified in version 4 is the smoking signage. Signage has always been required, however, there has not been clear guidance provided within the rating system. Version 4 now specifies that signage must be located within 10 feet of building entrances. The signage should still clearly communicate the exterior smoking policy and consists of more than just the universal no smoking symbol. In order to successfully document this prerequisite, you must provide a few things. First, a description of how the policy will be communicated. Then provide a copy of the policy and a signed letter from the owner committing to the policy. Provide a plan showing the location of designated smoking areas. Your signage locations can also be shown on this plan. If your project has any code restrictions that would keep you from complying with the requirements or any part of the requirements, provide evidence of that code restriction. This is an example of where a narrative would be a great idea so that there's no confusion by the reviewer. The first credit we're going to talk about is Enhanced Indoor Air Quality Strategies. This credit is a revamped version of what IEQ Credit 5 was in the version 3 rating system. There are 2 options. Option 1 is pretty much the standard compliance path from IEQ Credit 5. For mechanically ventilated buildings, you must provide entryway systems, address your chemical use areas, and provide increased filtration. Option 2 allows a project to pursue an additional point by attempting additional strategies like increased ventilation or utilizing carbon dioxide monitoring. You only need to attempt one additional strategy. And keep that in mind that even if you attempt 2 or 3 strategies, you can only earn 1 additional point. However, this credit does allow you to attempt either option for 1 point, meaning you may attempt only option 2 without complying with option 1 first. So depending on your project, using this path may be easier and you'll still allow you to earn a point. This credit has a lot of documentation requirements, as you can see by the list on the right, depending on which option you choose and which strategies are chosen. The list of documentation is shown here, as I said, and there are a few things you should remember for mechanically ventilated projects. When documenting entryway systems, it's important to address all doors, including doors that are exit only. Your drawings should specify the type of entrance or exit for each door. When documenting filtration, a cut sheet alone is not enough. You must provide a schedule or specifications, something specific to your project, which will confirm to the reviewer that this level of filtration is actually included in the design. Next is low emitting materials. This credit includes requirements for product manufacturing as well as project teams. It covers volatile organic compounds, or VOC, emissions in the indoor air and VOC content of materials, as well as the testing methods by which indoor VOC emissions are determined. Different materials must meet different requirements to be considered compliant for this credit. There are 2 options to achieve points in this credit. Option 1, product category calculations, and option 2, the budget calculation method. For option 1, the project must achieve the threshold level of compliance with emissions and content standards for a minimum of 2 product categories, which include interior paints and coatings applied on site, interior adhesives and sealants applied on site, including flooring adhesive, flooring, composite wood, ceilings, walls, thermal and acoustic insulation, furniture, and furniture should be included in the calculations if part of the scope of work. Exterior applied products is the last one, and this is applicable to healthcare and school projects only. The number of categories that are required to be documented to earn points depends on if furniture is included in your project or not. If furniture is not included, most project types need to document 2 categories to get 1 point, 4 categories to get 2 points, and 5 categories to get 3 points. If furniture is included, most projects need to document 3 categories for 1 point, 5 categories to get 2, and 6 categories to get 3 points. If some products in a category do not meet the criteria, project teams may use the budget calculation method under option 2. The budget method organizes the building interior into 5 assemblies: flooring, ceilings, walls, thermal and acoustic insulation, and furniture. Option 1 is simpler but less flexible, since partial credit in one category cannot be combined with partial credit in another category. If the minimum percentage compliance cannot be attained in a category, project teams must use option 2. Option 2 offers a budget calculation method that categorizes building interior projects and materials into assemblies. If at least 50% of an assembly is compliant, partial credit for that assembly can be combined with partial credit from another assembly to earn points, which ensures that teams can receive partial credit for specifying compliant low-emitting products or materials in each assembly category if full compliance is not readily achievable. Option 2 may also allow the project to achieve more points and demonstrate higher overall compliance, even if the option 1 requirements are also feasible. The USGBC Low Emitting Materials Calculator and product information such as MSDS sheets, third-party certifications, and testing reports are required to be provided for both options. The Low Emitting Materials Calculator is used to track and document purchases for LEED v4 BD&C and LEED v4 ID&C EQ credit low emitting materials. The calculator includes the VOC content limits from the reference standards. As previously mentioned, the Low Emitting Materials Third-Party Certification Table, available on the USGBC's website and seen here on the right, lists acceptable certifications and programs for this credit and is updated to add programs as they become available. It's a great resource to be able to quickly reference if a certification program complies with the credit requirements. And on the screen now is another screenshot of the calculator. Once all the products are added into the calculator, the Summary tab will list the compliant categories. Okay, the Credit Construction Indoor Air Quality Management Plan promotes the well-being of construction workers and building occupants by minimizing indoor air quality problems associated with construction and renovation. In order to earn this credit, projects must develop and implement an Indoor Air Quality Management Plan, or IAQ management plan, for the construction and pre-occupancy phases of the building. The plan must meet or exceed all applicable recommended control measures of the Sheet Metal and Air Conditioning National Contractors Association, or SMACNA, Indoor Air Quality Guidelines for occupied buildings under construction. Project teams must also protect absorptive materials stored on site and installed from moisture damage, and cannot operate permanently installed air handling equipment during construction unless filtration media with a minimum efficiency reporting value of 8 or MERV 8 are installed at each return grill and return or transferred duct inlet opening. Immediately before occupancy, that filtration media must be replaced and the final design filtration media installed in accordance with manufacturer's recommendations. Finally, the use of tobacco products must be prohibited inside the building and within 25 feet of the building entrance during construction. In order to document this credit, a copy of the IAQ management plan must be provided. In addition, a narrative describing the methods by which absorptive materials installed or stored on site were protected from moisture damage during the construction and pre-occupancy phases, and a narrative or photographs documenting each of the IAQ measures implemented must be provided. Okay, on to the next credit, Indoor Air Quality Assessment. This one strives to establish better quality indoor air in the building after construction and during occupancy. There are two options for compliance: option 1, flush out, and option 2, air testing. Regardless of which option is chosen, it must be implemented after construction ends and the building has been completely cleaned. All interior finishes such as millwork, doors, paint, carpet, acoustic tiles, and movable furnishings must be installed, and major VOC punch list items must be finished. The options cannot be combined. For option 1, path 1, which is flush out before occupancy, install new filtration media and perform a building flush out by supplying a total air volume of 14,000 cubic feet of air per square foot of gross floor area, while maintaining an internal temperature of at least 60 degrees Fahrenheit and no higher than 80 degrees Fahrenheit, with a relative humidity no higher than 60%. For option 1, path 2, which is flush out during occupancy, the space may be occupied only after delivery of a minimum of 3,500 cubic feet of outdoor air per square foot of gross floor area, while maintaining the same temperature and humidity requirements. Once the space is occupied, it must be ventilated at a minimum rate of 0.3 cubic feet per minute per square foot of outdoor air, or the design minimum outdoor air rate as determined in your ventilation calculations, whichever is greater. During each day of the flush-out period, ventilation must begin at least 3 hours before occupancy and continue during occupancy. These conditions must be maintained until a total of 14,000 cubic feet per square foot of outdoor air has been delivered to the space. In order to document this path, calculations and flush-out report are required. Option 1, both path 1 and path 2 is worth 1 point. In order to achieve 2 points for this credit, option 2, air testing, must be attempted. Particulates, ozone, carbon monoxide, total VOCs, and formaldehyde must be measured and may not exceed the maximum concentration levels outlined in the reference guide. For each sampling point where the concentration exceeds the limit, corrective action must be taken and the non-compliant contaminants must be retested at the same sampling points. This procedure must be repeated until all requirements are met. In order to document this path, the IAQ test report is required to be submitted. The Thermal Comfort Credit promotes occupants' productivity, comfort, and well-being by providing quality thermal comfort. There are two options for this credit. Option 1 uses ASHRAE Standard 55, 2010. The second option uses ISO and CEN standards and is primarily for international projects that can't comply with the ASHRAE standard. While this credit is similar to what it was in version 3, a thermal comfort control component has been added. So now, projects must provide individual controls for at least 50% of the individual occupant spaces, as well as thermal comfort controls for all shared multi-occupant spaces. In order to document this credit when using the ASHRAE compliance path, the Thermal Comfort tool is the most common document. This tool allows you to enter in your design conditions, and then it will tell you if your spaces are in compliance. Providing the results of this tool will take care of the design criteria portion of the credit. For the controls component, provide a list of all the spaces, individual and shared multi-occupant, along with a drawing showing the location of the thermal comfort controls provided for each space. Okay, now we're going to talk about interior lighting. This credit promotes occupants' productivity, comfort, and well-being by providing high-quality lighting. There are two options, and project teams may earn up to 2 points for this credit by attempting both option 1 and option 2. Option 1 requires that at least 90% of the individual occupant spaces are provided with individual lighting controls that enable occupants to adjust the lighting to suit their needs and preferences, with at least 3 lighting levels or scenes, which would be on, off, and mid-level. Mid-level is typically 30 to 75% of the maximum illumination level, not including daylight contributions. Additionally, all shared multi-occupant spaces must have in place multi-zone control systems that enable occupants to adjust the lighting to meet the group needs and preferences, with at least 3 lighting levels or scenes, same as before, on, off, and mid-level. Lighting for any presentations or projects must be separately controlled, and switches or manual controls must be located in the same space as the controlled luminaires. Option 2 offers 8 strategies, of which 4 must be implemented to meet the requirements. The strategies are listed on the right side of the screen. Strategies A through D are based on characteristics of the lighting fixtures, light sources, and luminaires. Strategies E through H are based on the characteristics of the surfaces in the project and the illuminance levels that fall on those surfaces. This option requires attention during early design phases because achievement depends on luminaire selection and the configuration and architectural service specifications. When it comes to documentation, for option 1, project teams must complete the table in the form for both individual occupant spaces and shared multi-occupant spaces. A narrative describing the control strategies and the reasons for excluding any spaces must be provided. Drawings showing the location and/or types of controls can be provided but are not mandatory. For option 2, there is a calculator that is required to be completed to document compliance, along with a narrative describing any excluded spaces and light fixtures. Daylighting credit. The intent of this one is to connect building occupants with the outdoors, reinforce our circadian rhythms, and reduce the use of electrical lighting by introducing daylighting into the space. And there are 3 options for earning this credit. All options require that manual or automatic with manual override glare control devices are provided for all regularly occupied spaces. Option 1 is simulation spatial daylight autonomy. Project teams have to demonstrate compliance through annual computer simulations that the spatial daylight autonomy of at least 55%, 75%, or 90% is achieved, and you must demonstrate through that annual computer simulation that an annual sunlight exposure of no more than 10% is achieved. Option 2 is simulation illuminance calculations. You demonstrate through computer modeling that the illuminance levels will be between 300 lux and 3000 lux for 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. on both a clear sky day at the equinox for 75%, which gives you 1 point, or 90%, which gives you 2 points of all regularly occupied floor area. You can exclude blinds or shades from the model and include any permanent interior obstructions. Option 3 is measurement. You have to achieve illuminance levels between 300 lux and 3000 lux for 75% or 90% of the regularly occupied floor area. Measurements must be taken at the work plane height between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. and 2 measurements must be taken 4 to 8 months apart. So this one does require some timing. To demonstrate compliance, the USGBC Daylight and Quality Views calculator must be provided, along with the applicable simulation or measurement results. Again, the EQ overview section in the reference guide provides a list and guidance on how to categorize spaces, either regularly occupied or non-regularly occupied for the purposes of this credit. The Quality Views credit is next, and it intends to give building occupants a connection to the natural outdoor environment by providing quality views. This credit requires that projects achieve a direct line of sight to the outdoors via vision glazing for 75% of all regularly occupied floor area. Vision glazing in the contributing area must provide a clear image to the exterior, not obstructed by frits, fibers, or pattern glazing, or added tints that distort color balance. Additionally, 75% of all regularly occupied floor area must have at least two of the following four kinds of views. 1. Multiple lines of sight to vision glazing in different directions at least 90 degrees apart. 2. Views that include at least two of the following: flora, fauna, or sky, movement, and objects at least 25 feet from the exterior of the glazing. 3. Unobstructed views located within the distance of 3 times the head height of the vision glazing. And 4. Views with a view factor of 3 or greater as defined in Windows and Offices, a study of office worker performance and the indoor environment. Any permanent interior should be included in the obstructions. Movable furniture and partitions may be excluded. Views into interior atria may be used to meet up to 30% of the required area. Again, here the USGBC daylight and quality views calculator must be provided. Sections and floor plans highlighting the line of sight must be provided for all view types, and documentation to confirm the view type must also be provided. Keep in mind that the view types may be mixed and matched, but documentation will be simpler if the same view types are used consistently across spaces. If the entire regularly occupied space or area does not meet the requirements of the selected view type, include only the regularly occupied area that complies. And on the screen now are some examples of those view types. The first one on the left is showing view type 1, multiple lines of sight to vision glazing in different directions at least 90 degrees apart. And the second one on the right side illustrates the view quality associated with each view factor level. Acoustic performance is next. And this is a credit that can be challenging for projects that don't engage an acoustic consultant. The credit challenges project teams to address best practices in acoustic design as an indoor environmental quality imperative that complements other green building practices. LEED 2009 covered acoustics in the schools and healthcare rating systems, partly because it critically affects learning and healing environments. Now, an acoustics credit is available to all new construction projects, challenging project teams to balance acoustical design strategies with considerations for daylighting, thermal comfort, and other performance areas that must be considered when planning systems and indoor spaces. The pieces of this credit are independent of each other because each addresses different sound elements in different parts of the building. There is a USGBC calculator that is required to demonstrate compliance. Additionally, calculations, manufacturer's documentation, and a narrative are required. As opposed to version 3, there is no narrative-only compliance path for HVAC background noise. Sound path calculations and/or field measurements must be performed. Now that we're through the EQ category, up next is the innovation category. And because the design strategies are constantly changing and improving, this category remains customizable to the individual project and its goals. There are 2 credits in this category, and the first is innovation. In this credit, up to 5 points can be earned. There are 3 ways to earn those points. Option 1 is innovation, option 2 is pilot credits, and option 3 is additional strategies. In order to pursue the maximum number of points, you must include at least 1 innovation credit, no more than 2 exemplary performance credits, and at least 1 pilot credit. If you're not sure what strategies would apply to the innovation option, you can reference the innovation catalog and either pursue strategies included there or use those strategies to put together a unique strategy based on your project's design. The second credit in the innovation category is LEED Accredited Professional. This credit encourages the team integration required by a LEED project and to streamline the application and certification process by engaging a team member that has experience with LEED projects specifically. One important thing to remember for this credit is that the LEED AP for your project must carry the credentials, including the specialty, to match your project. So if you're pursuing the BD&C rating system, your LEED AP must have the BD&C specialty. Someone with the ID&C or O&M specialty cannot earn the point. Documenting this credit is simple. Ensure that your project's lead AP is identified as such in Lead Online, and you can see on the right how that'll look. In the screenshot, you can see where the information is displayed. As long as this information is shown, the only other item that must be completed is the form, and that only requires that you select the appropriate team member by using a drop-down box provided in the form. Last is the regional priority category, which was created to put a focus on environmental issues that are specific to a project's geographical area. Because some of the issues are particular to a location, there were people from the USGBC chapters and LEED International Roundtable that got together to determine which credits were a priority for specific areas. This category automatically awards points when you meet a threshold, and it encourages project teams to focus on their local environmental priorities. So there are typically 6 credits available, and you can be awarded up to 4 per project. The regional priority database is where you look up which credits are applicable to your project, and you can do that at www.usgbc.org/RPC. And the points are automatically awarded upon achievement of that base credit and the associated threshold. Okay, so we've quickly gone through the 3 LEED categories, and those today that we've talked about can earn a project up to 26 points out of the total 110 available points. The IEQ credit category carries some weight, having the second highest available points in the rating system. With this category and the innovation and regional priority categories and some good planning, you can achieve a significant number of points, putting your project in a great position for certification, even at a gold or platinum level. So we've talked exclusively about LEED today, but there are other rating systems as well, which pursue different goals like Living Building Challenge, WELL, Passive House, and BREEAM. And while the end goals may be different, using any of these rating systems will serve to document and confirm your building's sustainability pursuits. Every project is different, and while LEED can accommodate most project types, it doesn't fit every project. You may be interested in pursuing a different rating system. And if that's the case, give me a call, and I'd be happy to talk with you about your particular situation and which rating system might be right for you. SRI and 3R have the experience with the process and the skills needed to help companies be successful in the pursuit of their sustainability goals. And if you're not considering certification but want to design or improve your building to get the maximum benefit, we can help with that too. Although I must say there is a lot of brand value to be realized from having that plaque and what it stands for, so I would highly encourage you to consider certification if at all possible. When you're pursuing LEED certification, you can call us to help. Or at the very least, make sure you involve someone who can look at your situation and provide a realistic assessment of how you should pursue your LEED certification. With the right partners on your team, LEED certification can be easy and beneficial, both for your financial and environmental commitments. Of course, if we can help in any other way, we've listed some of our 3R, CSR, and built environment services here. And I'd like to thank you for attending the LEED Project Series, Part 6. And please look for the last of our series coming in the next weeks, where we will dive into the details of the materials and resources category. Thank you.